Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Duncan Robert and I'm here to educate and inform Africa. To start us off, I'm going to take two very important countries. Let's put the conversation between Kenya and Ethiopia to rest. When you go online to all other platforms, the fight is immense. Everyone believes Kenya is better than Ethiopia. But again, everyone believes Ethiopia is better than Kenya. So I know very well that at one point, this conversation must be had from a factual, data-backed approach. And I'm choosing to be the first one to try and put this to rest. And I hope that this army of smart people watching will be happy and excited for what we have in store for you. So number one, remember to subscribe, remember to share, and remember to like whatever it is that we are producing. It's important that the channel grows. It's important that all of us have more people joining us so that the conversation can even be better and the quality of the conversations can be improved. So thank you very much. And I'm going straight to the point. There are three things you need to compare whenever you're comparing countries. People don't like it, but it's important that we compare countries so that we know how we are doing and we can improve. Number one is the citizens, the quality of life of the citizens. Number two is how attractive is the country to foreign capital. And then finally, how much of foreigners have been able to invest in your country, and how much, for example, how much have Kenyans managed to trespass or to get into Ethiopia and do business, and how much of Ethiopians have been able to access Kenya and do business. For this segment, I'm only going to focus on the citizens. We shall have part 2 and part 3 for the other components, but for now, let's focus on the citizens. I have 11 areas of comparison. Number one is the population. A bigger population is an advantage to a country. Ethiopia has 123 million people. Kenya has 54 million people. Kenya has a long way to go in terms of population. And Ethiopia takes that. In terms of aggregate GDP, what is GDP? GDP is basically the economic activity of a country. So how much business is done in a single calendar year in Ethiopia? 126 million USD. How much is done in Kenya? 139 million USD. So Ethiopia takes it. Those are two. When you come to GDP per capita, now a country can have a very huge aggregate GDP. The general economic activity of a country can be huge. But what about the individual GDP? How much of an income each individual in a country generates is a very important measure of the quality of economic life of a country. Kenya has 2,099 USD per capita GDP, while Ethiopia has 1,027. And that is where the significant difference comes in. Kenya has twice GDP per capita of Ethiopia. That means a Kenyan is more likely to make more for the same amount of work that an Ethiopian does. Yeah? In fact, he makes twice. Number two, GDP per capita growth rate. Now, how much is the GDP per capita growing? How much every year? And Kenya is growing at 2.9%, Ethiopia is growing at 2.7%. Kenya takes that. Yeah? And now Ethiopia will have to double its GDP per capita growth rate so that it can be able to match what Kenya currently has. And that will be a tough call, but who knows? Who knows? And then the next element is unemployment. How easy is it for someone to get a job in Kenya versus a job in Ethiopia? Ethiopia has an unemployment rate of 3.9%. Kenya has an unemployment rate of 5%. Guys, it is clearly easier for an Ethiopian to get a job than it is for a Kenyan. So Ethiopia takes that. The next one is education. How much has the government invested in education as a percentage of its GDP? Every single year, the Kenyan government spends around 4.8% on education. The Ethiopian government spends around 4.5%. Again, neck to neck, these two countries actually are competing at a very high level. So Kenya takes that. On education, Kenya takes that. But Ethiopia is just slightly below. Savings. The future of a country is pegged on how much savings they are able to do. Because the more you save, the more is availed for investors, the more is availed for people who are looking for money. And the more they're looking for money, the more you are paid. So it secures your future. So how secure is Kenya? How secure is Ethiopia? The future of Ethiopia is more secure than Kenya because they are saving at a rate of 25%, while Kenyans are saving at a rate of 16% of their GDP. Ethiopia takes that. In terms of investment in assets, this is another area which you can secure the future with. How much is invested in land, in properties and all that? 4.2% of the GDP of Kenya is invested in properties and non-financial assets. Ethiopia invests 4.1. Kenya takes it, but with a 0.1 margin. Expenditure on health. A healthy nation is a wealthy nation. A government that spends on health is a government that shows it takes care of its people. Kenya spends 4.2% of its GDP on its people, while Ethiopia spends 3.48% on health. Kenya takes that. So a Kenyan population is healthier. We can say that, but of course that is not the only measure. But the Kenyan government spends more on health to be able to take care of the health of its people than the Ethiopian government. In terms of internet access, guys, we live at a time when everyone wants to access information because, as you all know, information improves our thinking, improves our perspective. We therefore make better decisions and we are able to get quality outcomes. And quality outcomes will lead to better economic development and prosperity. So there are two elements to look at when it comes to internet access: mobile subscriptions and, of course, internet access itself. In terms of mobile subscription, Kenya is subscribed at 120%. There are 65 million mobile phones in Kenya as compared to Ethiopia, which has 64 million. And it is even interesting to look at, while 65 million mobile phones are there in Kenya, the population of Kenya is only 54 million. So any single Kenya you meet on the road should and ideally should be having a phone. In Ethiopia, half of the population has a phone at 52%. So Kenya takes that. What about internet access? You might have mobile phones, but are you able to access the internet? Both of these two countries are ranking very low as compared to other countries in Africa. As compared to South Africa, which has almost 80%, Nigeria has 55%, Egypt has 72%. So you see, in short, 7 out of 10 people in Egypt can access the internet. 8 out of 10 people in South Africa can access the internet. 5 out of 10 people in Nigeria can access the internet. Now in Kenya, only 30%. Only 3 out of 10 people can access the internet. And only 2 people in Ethiopia out of 10 can access the internet. So that means Kenya takes that. Kenya takes the internet access and mobile subscriptions. But I know someone will ask me, how is Kenya having very low internet access and yet they have oversubscribed? They have so many mobile phones. The answer is this: most Kenyans have their phones for the purposes of mobile transfer and mobile money and mobile transactions. Mobile transaction in Kenya is very high. And most people, only 70% of the people have something called Mulika Mwizi. It's a phone that cannot access the internet. And that is why you see so many people have it, but most of them cannot access the internet. So there it is. You have, guys, out of the 11 areas of comparison, Kenya has taken 7 out of 4 from Ethiopia. Now, this is not the final conversation, remember. This is the first segment where we focused on the citizens. And on the citizen side, the Kenyan citizens seems to be living a better quality life than Ethiopians. But we are coming back with another segment on how attractive is the country for foreign direct investment and even for investors and even for tourism and all that. And then finally, we will come back and compare how many Kenyans have been able to access the Ethiopian market and how many Ethiopians have been able to access the Kenyan market, how many companies that are locally based in Kenya that have been able to access the Ethiopian market. Once we compare those 3 elements, then guys, we will come with the final verdict and we will put this conversation to rest. Thank you very much. Remember to subscribe, remember to like, remember to share. We are building an army of smart people and I want you to be one of them. So remember to subscribe, guys. Remember to subscribe. Thank you.